Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you.
Welcome to Congress in Context. Today we're diving deep into the Congressional Record from Tuesday, March 18th, 2025.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you share this with us, and I think it's a really interesting one to look at. Our goal is to always kind of extract the key legislative activities and debates and trends without burying you in the detail.
Sure.
So think of this as kind of like a shortcut.
Yeah.
So what happened that day in the House and the Senate and why it matters.
Yeah.
So we have the official record of the 119th Congress, first session. And we're going to be focusing on, the new bills and resolutions introduced in the House, any kind of significant formal communications, and then just a quick look at what the Senate was up to. So by the end, you'll have a clear picture of the day's congressional business and its potential ripple effects.
Yeah. It's fascinating when you look at the Congressional Record, even from, what seems like a quiet day, the sheer volume of potential policy shifts that are being teed up. This particular Tuesday in March, I think, gives us a fascinating snapshot of the issues that are really occupying the minds of lawmakers at this time.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Starting in the House of Representatives, they convened at noon, called to order by Speaker pro tempore, Mr. Jack. That's Brian Jack, designated for the day by Speaker Johnson.
Okay.
It's interesting that even, these temporary role assignments are formally documented. We also had the opening prayer by Chaplain Kibben focusing on themes of refuge. And the contrast between right and wrong, and then the routine approval of the previous day's journal and the Pledge of Allegiance.
These opening acts, while appearing procedural, they're really the foundations upon which legislative business is conducted. The prayer, for instance, can sometimes reflect the broader moral or political climate within the chamber.
That's right. Then we had a couple of formal communications, notification about the absence of the Clerk of the House, Mr. McCumber, and then, importantly, the formal acknowledgement that H.R. 1968, dealing with continuing appropriations, had been signed into law a few days prior.
Oh, okay.
So even on a day with a short session, we see the tangible outcome of previous legislative efforts being recognized.
That's right. The signing of an appropriations bill is such a critical function of Congress ensuring that the government continues to operate. So even a brief mention like this signifies the ongoing nature of governance with past decisions having present-day consequences.
And here's where we start to see, potentially a shift in direction. The executive communications.
Okay.
A letter from the president transmitting initial rescissions of what are termed harmful executive orders and actions. This was referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs. The word harmful is certainly open to interpretation, but this communication clearly signals the executive branch intends to alter existing policies, and the referral to foreign affairs suggests these changes have international implications.
Executive rescissions are a powerful tool allowing the president to undo previous executive actions without immediate congressional approval. The fact that these are going to the Foreign Affairs Committee suggests they could relate to treaties, international agreements, or foreign policy directives. It'll certainly be worth watching what specific orders are being targeted here and what the rationale is behind these rescissions.
And then we get to the main event of the day. A flood of newly introduced public bills and resolutions.
Okay.
Over 70 in total.
Wow.
This really illustrates the breadth of issues that members of Congress are trying to address. It's like seeing dozens of different policy ideas being thrown into the legislative hopper all at once.
Absolutely. While the vast majority of these won't actually become law, their introduction signals the concerns and priorities of individual representatives and the diverse needs of their constituents. It's really a snapshot of the challenges and opportunities that lawmakers perceive.
So let's pick out a few just to give folks a sense of this variety. So we had H.R. 2169 proposing to observe Martin Luther King Jr. Day on a separate date from Inauguration Day.
Interesting.
This immediately brings up the symbolic importance of federal holidays and, the desire to give appropriate recognition to different aspects of American history and culture.
This bill touches on how we as a nation choose to commemorate. significant figures and events in our national calendar. Separating these 2 days could be seen as an effort to elevate the unique importance of Dr. King's legacy and his contributions to the nation.
Then we have H.R. 2170, which aims to name a VA clinic in New Jersey after Leonard G. Bud Lamell. These types of bills, while seemingly local, are often a way for Congress to honor the service and sacrifice of veterans within their communities and tend to garner, pretty broad bipartisan support.
Yeah, these acts of commemoration I think are so vital. They connect national appreciation for veterans service to specific individuals and places, really reinforcing the human element of that service.
Then we saw H.R. 2172, looking to clarify patient access to home infusion therapy under Medicare. Now, what's interesting here is that this was referred to both the Committee on Energy and Commerce and the Committee on Ways and Means.
Okay.
This dual referral tells us that the bill likely has implications for both how healthcare services are delivered and how they're financed by the government.
Absolutely. So Energy and Commerce likely has jurisdiction over the practical aspects of providing home infusion therapy as a healthcare service, ensuring its safety and effectiveness. Ways and Means, on the other hand, would focus on how these services are covered and reimbursed under the Medicare system. This overlap really highlights the often intertwined nature of healthcare policy.
Then kind of shifting gears a little bit, we had H.R. 2174, which proposes to prohibit federal agencies from automatically deducting labor organization dues from employee paychecks. This kind of bill often emerges in debates about the relationship between the government as an employer and federal employee unions. Historically, these deductions have been standard practice, so eliminating them could have a significant impact on union finances and membership.
This bill reflects a long-standing discussion about the influence of public sector unions. Supporters often argue it promotes greater employee choice and reduces the financial power of unions. Opponents contend it could weaken unions, impacting their ability to advocate for workers' rights and potentially leading to a decline in workplace protections.
In the realm of energy and environment, we saw H.R. 2177, aiming to establish a tradable energy performance standard for large electricity generators.
Okay.
So this is a market-based approach to environmental regulation, where companies could buy and sell credits based on their emissions performance.
This type of standard seeks to incentivize cleaner energy production by creating economic rewards for companies that exceed emission reduction targets. The tradable aspect allows for flexibility, as companies that find it more costly to reduce emissions can purchase credits from those who can do so more efficiently, ideally leading to overall emissions reductions at a lower cost.
Then turning to foreign policy, we have H.R. 2179, sought to prohibit certain assistance to Russia. In the context of, ongoing geopolitical tensions, this type of bill is a tool Congress can use to exert pressure and signal its disapproval of certain actions by foreign governments.
Measures like these are often part of a broader strategy of economic and diplomatic pressure. By restricting aid, Congress can aim to limit Russia's resources and influence its behavior on the international stage.
Several bills focused on government oversight, including H.R. 2181, which proposed establishing a for-cause removal standard for inspectors general. Now, inspectors general are meant to be independent watchdogs within federal agencies, so the standard for their removal directly impacts their ability to conduct impartial oversight. A for-cause standard typically offers more protection against politically motivated removals.
Absolutely. A strong and independent inspector general system is crucial for government accountability, and a for-cause removal standard is generally seen as bolstering that independence, ensuring IGs can pursue investigations without fear of reprisal for uncovering wrongdoing.
Then we even saw a bill, H.R. 2185, aiming to prohibit mink farming for fur, citing ethical and animal welfare concerns, as well as potential public health risks.
Wow.
Interestingly, this could also have budgetary implications if compensation is considered for those affected by the ban. This really underscores, I think, the diverse range of issues that Congress grapples with, from animal rights to economic considerations.
This bill highlights the increasing attention being paid to animal welfare in policy debates, and it also illustrates how seemingly disparate issues can intersect, with ethical considerations potentially leading to economic and even public health policy changes.
Healthcare regulations were also a significant theme. H.R. 2191 looking at revising physician self-referral exemptions related to physician-owned hospitals. Under Medicare, again, with referrals to multiple committees. This suggests ongoing efforts to address potential conflicts of interest within the healthcare system.
Okay.
And then we saw some particularly contentious social issues arise with H.R. 2197 and H.R. 2202, both aiming to restrict the use of taxpayer funds for certain gender transition procedures. The fact that these were also referred to multiple committees indicates the legal, ethical, and financial complexities involved.
These bills concerning gender-affirming care touch upon fundamental debates about healthcare access, the role of government funding in medical treatments, and differing perspectives on gender identity. The multiple committee referrals likely reflect jurisdictional considerations related to healthcare financing, civil rights, and potentially even constitutional issues.
It's worth noting that H.R. 2203, which dealt with the regulation of zootechnical animal food substances, um, seemed to garner bipartisan support with multiple co-sponsors listed.
Oh, interesting.
This reminds us that, not all legislative activity is strictly partisan. There are areas where common ground and shared interests can lead to cross-party collaboration, especially on more technical or industry-specific matters.
Yeah, bipartisan support in areas like this often reflects a shared understanding of the need for clear regulations to ensure the safety and quality of products within a particular sector, benefiting both consumers and the industry itself.
Efforts to address healthcare costs continued with H.R. 2214, aiming to improve the services provided by pharmacy benefit managers. Given the complexities of the pharmaceutical market and the rising cost of prescription drugs, this is an area of ongoing concern for many Americans.
The role of pharmacy benefit managers is a critical point in the pharmaceutical supply chain, and this bill suggests a congressional interest in ensuring they're operating effectively and transparently, ultimately aiming to lower drug costs for consumers.
On the environmental front, H.R. 2218 sought to eliminate a waiver under the Clean Air Act related to California's emission standards. This reignites the perennial debate about the balance of power between federal and state governments. In setting environmental regulations, particularly in areas where states have historically taken a leading role.
This bill taps into a long-standing tension regarding state autonomy versus federal uniformity in environmental policy. California has often set stricter standards than the federal government, and this bill indicates an effort to potentially roll back some of that state-level authority.
Addressing public health challenges was also evident with H.R. 2223. Proposing to authorize loans and grants for mental health and substance use disorder treatment facilities. Okay. This reflects a growing national recognition of the need to invest in these critical areas of healthcare.
Increased access to mental health and substance use disorder treatment is such a significant public health priority, and this bill suggests a potential move towards expanding the infrastructure and resources available to address these challenges.
Then the deeply divisive issue of abortion and religious freedom surfaced with H.R. 2226, which aimed to prohibit discrimination against entities that do not participate in abortion services and strengthen federal conscience laws. This is an area where fundamental beliefs often clash, leading to significant legislative and legal battles.
Legislation concerning abortion and conscience protections frequently highlights the delicate balance between individual religious liberties and access to healthcare services, and these debates often involve deeply held moral and ethical convictions.
Finally, we saw H.R. 2237 directing the Comptroller General to report on the H-2A visa program, which allows agricultural employers to bring in temporary foreign workers. This indicates ongoing scrutiny of immigration and labor practices, particularly as they relate to the agricultural sector.
The H-2A program is such a complex issue with significant implications for both agricultural employers and domestic workers, so a report from the Comptroller General could provide some really valuable data and insights to inform future policy decisions in this area.
Now, beyond these individual bills, we also saw a joint resolution, H.J. 77, which aimed to recognize the sovereignty of Ukraine within its 1991 borders.
Okay.
What was notable here was the significant list of bipartisan co-sponsors, suggesting a strong degree of consensus on this particular aspect of foreign policy.
Bipartisan support for a resolution like this sends a really powerful message of unity and solidarity on such an important international issue. It underscores a shared understanding of international law and the importance of respecting national sovereignty.
And then a couple of House resolutions, H.Res. 227, expressing support for designating March 18, 2025 as National Agriculture Day, which also enjoyed broad bipartisan backing, highlighting the widespread recognition of the agricultural sector's importance to the nation. However, on a more politically charged note, H.Res. 229 sought to impeach a U.S. District Court Chief Judge.
Wow.
Indicating potential political tensions and the use of congressional oversight powers regarding the judiciary.
The contrast between that bipartisan recognition of agriculture and the partisan nature of an impeachment resolution really illustrates the diverse functions of Congress, from expressing national sentiments to exercising its oversight responsibilities. Impeachment proceedings are inherently serious and often reflect deep political divisions.
And it's also crucial to note that for every one of these newly introduced bills and joint resolutions, a constitutional authority statement was submitted with Article 1, Section 8 being cited in almost every case. As you know, this section of the Constitution grants Congress a wide array of legislative powers, so it really underscores the legal foundation claimed for these actions.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, the presence of bipartisan co-sponsors on many of these initiatives, even at this early stage, is something to pay attention to as they move through the legislative process.
Right. The consistent reliance on Article 1, Section 8 demonstrates the broad scope of Congress's enumerated powers, and early bipartisan support can certainly be a significant indicator of a bill's potential for success, though it certainly doesn't guarantee it.
Now let's briefly look at the Senate side. It appears to have been a much quieter day in terms of public activity. The Senate met in what's called a pro forma session, and then adjourned until Thursday, March 20th. Senator Rand Paul was appointed as acting president pro tempore. These pro forma sessions are typically very short and involve minimal legislative business. They serve primarily to keep the Senate officially in session, preventing the president from making recess appointments without Senate approval, and maintaining the Senate's ability to act quickly if needed.
Exactly. While not a day of major legislative action, these pro forma sessions fulfill really important procedural requirements within the Senate's calendar and rules.
Finally, we need to touch on the extensions of remarks section of the Congressional Record. This is often lengthy, but it's where individual members of Congress can insert statements, tributes, and other materials that weren't necessarily delivered on the House floor. And it provides a really interesting window into the diverse priorities and concerns of individual representatives.
The extensions of remarks offer a valuable supplement to the formal proceedings. They allow members to highlight local events, honor constituents, express opinions on policy issues, and even engage in political messaging in a way that doesn't actually require floor time.
We saw numerous tributes to local leaders and community figures, anniversaries of local institutions like Defiance College in Ohio. Recognitions of veterans there were also discussions of policy issues, such as the Salary History Question Prohibition Act, sponsored by Eleanor Holmes Norton, aimed at addressing gender and racial pay disparities. This shows how members use this space to amplify issues they believe are important.
These extensions underscore the role of representatives in connecting with and advocating for their communities. The inclusion of legislative proposals within this section highlights the various ways members seek to bring attention to their policy goals.
We also saw a more politically charged statement regarding Biden lawfare persecution, illustrating the partisan viewpoints that find their way into the record. But there were also more unifying notes like celebrations of cultural events such as St. Patrick's Day and Chinese New Year, reflecting the diverse cultural tapestry of the communities they represent, and even a congratulatory message to the Grand Ole Opry on its 100th anniversary, highlighting the importance of cultural institutions.
Yeah, the range of content in the extensions of remarks truly reflects the multifaceted interests and concerns of individual members of Congress, from local community recognition to national policy debates to partisan messaging.
And lastly, it's worth noting that no committee meetings were held in either the House or the Senate on this particular day.
Okay.
This suggests the focus was primarily on these formal proceedings and the introduction of new legislation rather than the more in-depth work of debating and refining bills. That takes place in committees.
The absence of committee meetings likely indicates a day focused on laying the groundwork with new proposals rather than advancing existing legislation through the committee process. Committee work is where the real deep dives into policy details occur.
So what does all of this mean for you? This look into the Congressional Record offers, I think, a direct glimpse into the legislative process. You've seen a wide array of new bills introduced, touching on everything from how we observe holidays and honor veterans to, significant issues in healthcare, energy, and foreign policy. The mix of bipartisan cooperation on some measures and clear partisan divides on others really illustrates the complex dynamic of our government. And even the often overlooked extensions of remarks provides valuable insights into the values and priorities being championed by individual representatives.
This raises, I think, an important question for you to consider. Among these newly introduced bills, which ones do you think have the greatest potential to move forward? And what kind of impact could they have on your life, your community, or the nation as a whole? Keeping an eye on the progress of these bills through committee hearings, floor debates, and eventual votes will be crucial for understanding the future direction of policy.
For those of you who want to delve deeper, we encourage you to look up the full text of some of the bills that piqued your interest today, such as H.R. 2172 on home infusion therapy or H.E. Rissazamet's 77 concerning Ukraine. Understanding the specifics of these proposals is really the next step in becoming truly well-informed. And remember, staying engaged doesn't stop here. You can always reach out to your own representatives to share your perspectives on the issues that matter most to you. Your voice plays such a vital role in this ongoing process. Thanks for taking this deep dive into the Congressional Record with us.